My name is Muir Powell, and I live in Tacoma, Washington. Currently, over 300 of the state's bridges are over 80 years old, and Washington's interstates are over 50 years old. How do you plan to address our state's aging infrastructure?
Great question. You know, our state is growing fast, and that infrastructure that you're talking about is under more pressure than ever from all the users as we see our population expanding throughout the entirety of the state. So it's really important that we focus, and I have focused along with the entirety of the House Transportation Committee and the good chair, on working to make sure that when we do the budget, that we appropriate the funds necessary for what we call maintenance and preservation. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed, and it's about priorities. We have a lot of new projects being built. We have a lot of things that we need to focus those dollars on. But over the years, for whatever reason, maintenance and preservation was never really at the highest level when it came to making sure that appropriate amounts of money flowed into those programs. So it's been a priority for myself and also the chair to make sure that those dollars, and we've committed to that year after year, budget after budget, this year being no exception. A couple years ago, we had the opportunity to tour a lot of the bridges on throughout the state, primarily along the Columbia River. And one of the biggest ones is the one going over the Columbia River between Vancouver and Portland. That is a project that is underway right now. Many people think about it as maintenance and preservation. It's a replacement of a 100-year-old bridge. But we looked at a lot of other bridges and structures around the state that are in need of these preservations. They're critical to make sure people can get from point A to point B. So maintenance and preservation will continue to be that priority for myself and many others. To make sure that the infrastructure that we have is preserved for today and for many years down the road. And in addition to that, anything that we're building today, any of these new projects, we must take into consideration making sure that the funding is there in the future so that we don't run into this problem down the road with not having the necessary dollars to maintain the new stuff that we just built.
That's a great question, and a huge challenge in general for road infrastructure and other infrastructure, utilities, water systems. Big issue because we build a lot of infrastructure, and then the important part is to maintain it. And there's never enough money to do all the things you would like to do. Our transportation system is dependent on user fees, and those user fees tend to be very sensitive with the taxpayers, fuel taxes, and annual vehicle fees. People get pretty upset at times about when they see those increases because it means a lot to their daily household budget. Bridges are very important, and of course, we're a state that has not only bridges but a ferry system where we have a lot of bridges in the state of Washington. I would point to the work that we're doing right now down in the Clark County, Portland area, where we are working. We've committed with the state of Oregon each $1 billion to rebuild the bridge that is one of which is over 100 years old, in order to really ensure that system, which is really goes from all the way up from the state of Washington all the way down to Mexico. Very important transportation link for the whole state of Washington and for our economic well-being, not to mention individual citizens who want to use the interstate to get from California perhaps to the state of Washington. So we put money aside every year in what we call preservation and maintenance. And preservation and maintenance tries to take care, and those investments try to take care of the needed work that we have to do. It's not just bridges, but it's other improvements to the system that keep the lifespan of those bridges extended out in time. We're sort of at a deficit now because for a long time the focus has been upon building new transportation improvements across the state of Washington, all of which are very important. But what's more important is is taking care of what we already own, because if we don't, like the bridges that I mentioned down in Clark County, those bridges will deteriorate and it becomes more of the cost of a replacement than just the cost of annual maintenance. So the one bridge in the down and across the Columbia River that I just mentioned, they annually have to hand grease the gears on that bridge because it is a bridge that lifts. Very expensive, very tiresome work, and really does not really meet the current needs of the state. So we have a lot of emphasis on that particular bridge, but there are a lot more. And we try to prioritize bridges. We set aside certain amounts for bridges in our budget. But there again, there's a sensitivity to what each individual car owner can absorb in costs. We look for other funding sources to carry us into the future, but at this point in time, it's very difficult. Great question. Happy to have a question from my legislative district.